The meeting room fell silent as the hologram flickered to life. 12 pairs of eyes watched the blue projection show an alien warship cutting through a defense fleet like they were made of paper. The water-based weapons sliced through metal, hulls leaving behind only floating debris. "This happened 2 days ago at the Centauri outpost," said General Moore, his face grim. "No survivors." Captain Jack Reed stood by the window, looking out at the stars. He was a tall man with short brown hair and eyes that had seen too much war. At 45, he was one of Earth's most experienced fleet commanders. "The Aquans," he said quietly. "They're coming here next, aren't they?" General Moore nodded. "Our scouts report their fleet has changed course. They'll reach our solar system in 3 weeks." A cold feeling spread through the room. Everyone knew what the Aquans were. The blue-skinned beings from a water world had spent the last 100 years taking over the galaxy. Their ships carried weapons that no one could stand against. "For those who haven't seen the reports," said Moore, pressing a button that changed the hologram, "these are hydro weapons." The image showed a close-up of an Aquan ship firing what looked like a stream of water. But this was no ordinary water. It moved with impossible speed and force, cutting through a battlecruiser's armor like it wasn't there. "The Aquans can control water at the molecule level," explained Moore. "They can make it harder than steel or sharp enough to cut through anything, and they have endless supplies of it." "What about our plasma cannons?" asked a younger officer. "Water boils against heat, right?" "We've tried that," said Moore, shaking his head. "They have some kind of shield that keeps the water from boiling away. 23 systems have fought against them. 23 have lost." Captain Jack turned from the window. "So we surrender? Is that the plan?" The room grew even quieter. No one wanted to say it out loud. "The president is considering all options," said Moore carefully. "But yes, surrender is being discussed. The Aquans allow planets to live if they agree to pay heavy taxes and follow their rules." Jack's fist hit the table. "We didn't fight the Arctarian Empire and the Nexus Horde just to bow down to some fish people." "Captain Reed," Moore warned. "Watch your language. This isn't a bar fight. We're talking about the survival of our species." An older man who had been sitting quietly in the corner stood up. He had white hair and moved slowly, but his eyes were sharp. "Perhaps not all options have been explored." Everyone turned to look at him. "Admiral Marcus," said Moore with respect, "the floor is yours." Marcus walked to the center of the room. He had been retired for 10 years, but his name still carried weight. He had led Earth's forces in the war against the Arctarians 20 years ago. "I've been studying the Aquans since they first appeared," he said. "Everyone focuses on their weapons, but no one asks the right questions." He took the control pad from Moore and changed the hologram to show an Aquan up close. The alien had blue skin, large black eyes, and webbed hands. "The Aquans come from a water world. They evolved in the oceans. Their bodies can't handle high heat. Their technology works with water, not against it." Jack's eyes narrowed. "What are you saying, Admiral?" "I'm saying that we've been fighting them wrong," said Marcus. "Everyone tries to block their water attacks, or dodge them. But what if we went straight through them instead?" "That's suicide," said one of the officers. "Not if we had a ship that could turn their greatest strength into their biggest weakness," said Marcus with a small smile. "Not if we had a ship that could make their water weapons useless." He pulled a small device from his pocket and placed it on the table. It projected plans for a ship unlike anything they had seen before. "I call it the Sunforge," he said. "A ship built around heat and fire instead of standard weapons. The Aquans use water because that's what they know. We need to use what we know." "And what's that?" asked Moore. "How to make things burn," said Marcus simply. 3 days later, Captain Jack stood in a massive hangar looking up at the beginnings of the Sunforge. Workers moved around the skeleton of the ship, welding pieces together and installing systems. "It's not going to be ready in time," said a woman's voice beside him. Jack turned to see Lieutenant Anna Chen, the lead engineer assigned to the project. She had oil stains on her hands and dark circles under her eyes. "Then we'll have to make it ready," said Jack. "The president gave us 2 weeks before she has to give the Aquans an answer." Anna shook her head. "You don't understand. This ship uses technology we've only tested in labs. The core reaches temperatures that would melt normal ships. The shielding might not even work. It has to work, said Jack firmly. Because surrender isn't an option. They walked closer to the ship. Even incomplete, it was impressive. Unlike the sleek designs of most Earth ships, the Sunforge was bulky, with thick armor plates and a glowing red core visible through special windows. The main idea is simple, Anna explained as they walked. We create heat so intense that it instantly vaporizes any water it touches. The problem is controlling that heat and protecting our own crew from it. A loud voice called from across the hangar. Captain, Lieutenant, you need to see this. They hurried over to where Commander Tom Parker was standing by a screen. Tom was the weapons officer assigned to the Sunforge, a stocky man with a permanent scowl. He had lost his family when the Aquans attacked a human colony the year before. New reports from the outer system, he said, pointing at the screen. The Aquans just destroyed our monitoring station on Pluto. They're moving faster than we thought. Jack's stomach tightened. How long? 10 days, maybe less. Anna's face went pale. We need at least 2 weeks just to finish the basic systems. The weapons won't be ready for 3. Then we focus on what matters most, said Jack. The heat shield and the core. If we can't fight back yet, we at least need to be able to survive their attacks. A new voice joined them. Actually, the shield is the weapon. They turned to see a thin man with wild gray hair and glasses. Dr. Wilson was the scientist who had developed the heat theory that made the Sunforge possible. If we can turn their water into steam fast enough, he continued, the expansion creates an explosive force. We don't need to shoot them if we can make their own weapons blow up in their faces. Jack looked back at the half-built ship. It seemed impossible that this unfinished vessel could stand against the might of the Aquan fleet. But it was all they had. Work shifts are now 24 hours, he announced. I want every available engineer, welder, and technician on this. If anyone needs a reason to work harder, remind them that their families are on this planet. As people rushed to their stations with new urgency, Jack looked at the small team that would form the core of his crew. Anna, with her brilliant mind, Tom with his fighting spirit, and Dr. Wilson with his unconventional ideas. Do you really think we can win? Anna asked quietly. Jack watched as the workers swarmed over the Sunforge like ants, racing against time. I think we're going to show those water breathers that they picked the wrong planet to mess with, he said. Humans don't surrender. We adapt. We overcome. And right now we're going to build a ship that burns hotter than they can imagine. Above them, through the open roof of the hangar, the stars shone coldly. Somewhere out there, the Aquan fleet was coming. But for the first time, since the news had broken, Jack felt something other than dread. He felt hope. The Sunforge grew day by day. Workers crawled over it like ants, welding and hammering around the clock. The once empty hangar now hummed with activity as machines whirred and sparks flew. Captain Jack walked through the chaos, stepping over cables and dodging moving equipment. 7 days had passed since the project began. 7 days out of the 10 they had left. Captain! Lieutenant Anna waved him over to a large computer display. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes, but her face showed excitement. We've solved the core temperature problem. Jack looked at the screen. It showed a diagram of the ship's center where a glowing ball of energy pulsed. The old design could only reach 5,000 degrees, Anna explained. But Dr. Wilson found a way to double it. 10,000 degrees, Captain. Hot enough to turn water into vapor instantly. Will the ship survive that kind of heat? Jack asked. Anna pointed to a new layer around the core. That's where Tom's idea comes in. Tell him, Tom. Commander Tom Parker stepped forward. Unlike Anna's excitement, his face remained serious. Since losing his family to the Aquans, he rarely smiled. We're using a double-layer shield, he said. The inner layer keeps the heat in. The outer layer lets us control where the heat goes. He tapped a few buttons and the diagram showed heat flowing from the core to the front of the ship. We can direct it like a weapon. Jack nodded, impressed. How are we on time? Anna's smile faded. The main systems will be ready, but we're having trouble with the engines. They keep overheating when tested with the core. What do you need? More time, said Anna. Or a miracle. As if on cue, Admiral Marcus walked in, leaning on a cane. Despite his age, he visited the project daily, offering advice from his decades of experience. I might have something better than a miracle, he said. Follow me. He led them to a small lab off the main hangar. Inside, Dr. Wilson was hunched over a tank of water, dropping small metal balls into it. Each ball created a burst of steam when it hit the water. What are we looking at? Jack asked. The answer to our engine problem, said Marcus. Dr. Wilson, show them. Wilson looked up with a grin. His wild gray hair seemed to stand even more on end than usual. The Aquans think water is the perfect substance, he said. And they're right, it's stable, powerful, and common. But they never learned what water does when it meets extreme heat in a confined space. He took a larger metal sphere, heated it with a torch until it glowed red, then dropped it into a sealed container of water. The container shot across the room and slammed into the wall. Steam expansion, Wilson explained. When water turns to steam, it increases in volume by 1,700 times. That's energy we can use for propulsion. Tom's eyes widened. You're saying we can use their own water against them? Not just for defense, but for movement too? Wilson nodded. Their attacks will literally push us forward if we heat the water as it hits us. For the first time in days, Jack felt real hope. How soon can we install this system? 2 days, said Anna. Maybe less if we pull people from the weapons team. Do it, ordered Jack. Weapons won't matter if we can't move. The next evening, Jack stood on a platform overlooking the nearly complete Sun Forge. The ship looked nothing like Earth's usual sleek vessels. It was bulky, with thick armor plating and a slightly rounded front that people had started calling the heat shield. Through special windows, he could see the core glowing red at the center of the ship. Workers were installing the final components of the engine system based on Wilson's steam discovery. Impressive, isn't it? Admiral Marcus joined him at the railing. In my 40 years of service, I never saw anything built this quickly. Will it be enough? Jack asked quietly. Marcus looked at him. You're worried. In 8 days, we're taking an untested ship with experimental technology against an enemy that has never been defeated. Yes, I'm worried, Marcus nodded. As you should be. Only a fool wouldn't be scared. But remember, the Aquans have never faced humans before. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the hangar. Red lights flashed as a voice came over the speakers. All personnel, battle stations. Repeat, all personnel to battle stations. Jack's communicator buzzed. He answered it to hear General Moore's tense voice. Reed, get up to command now. The Aquans just broke through our outer defenses. They're at Mars already. Jack's blood ran cold. Mars? That's impossible. They shouldn't be there for another week. Tell that to the 2 outposts they just destroyed, said Moore. We need the Sun Forge ready now. Jack looked at the ship. It was maybe 80% complete. The weapons were barely installed and the engines hadn't been fully tested. We need more time, he said. There is no more time, Moore replied. Launch in 3 hours, or there won't be an Earth to defend. The line went dead. Jack turned to Marcus, whose face had gone pale. 3 hours, Jack said. Can we do it? Marcus stared at the ship for a long moment, then straightened his back. We don't have a choice. 2.5 hours later, Jack stood on the bridge of the Sun Forge. Around him, a skeleton crew rushed to prepare for launch. Screens flickered to life, showing systems coming online. Lieutenant Anna worked frantically at the engineering station. Core temperature rising, she reported. 5,000 degrees, 6,000, holding at 6,500. That's all I can give you safely right now. At the weapons console, Tom ran diagnostics on systems that had been installed only hours before. Heat channels are responding, but I can't guarantee accuracy. We're basically pointing a flamethrower and hoping for the best. Dr. Wilson monitored the steam conversion system. The capture tanks are ready. Any water that hits us will be routed to the engines, in theory at least. Jack sat in the captain's chair, feeling its unfamiliar shape. The ship was incomplete, untested, and possibly dangerous to its own crew. But it was humanity's only hope. "All stations, final report," he ordered. "Engineering ready, Captain," said Anna. "Core stable but below optimal temperature." "Weapons online but untested," reported Tom. "Life support functioning," added another crew member. "Navigation systems calibrated," said the pilot, a young man named Ryan who had volunteered despite the risks. Jack took a deep breath. Outside the ship, the hangar doors were slowly opening, revealing the night sky. Somewhere up there, the Aquan fleet was approaching, their hydro weapons ready to tear through Earth's defenses like they had done to countless worlds before. "This ship was supposed to take 3 more weeks," Jack said to his crew. "We built it in 10 days. Whatever happens next, know that you've already done the impossible." He pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All hands, prepare for launch, secure all stations." The Sunforge's engines hummed to life, creating a vibration that ran through the entire vessel. "Navigation, set course for Mars orbit. Maximum speed." Jack gripped the arms of his chair as the ship lifted off the ground. "Let's show these Aquans what happens when they pick a fight with humans." The Sunforge rose into the night sky, its red core glowing like an angry star. Behind it, the people of Earth watched and hoped. Ahead, the Aquan fleet waited with weapons that had conquered half the galaxy. The battle for humanity was about to begin. The Sunforge moved through space, its engines glowing red against the darkness. Inside the ship, the crew worked in tense silence. No one had slept in over 24 hours, and the fear of what waited ahead kept them alert despite their exhaustion. Captain Jack stood behind the pilot, watching as they approached Mars. The red planet looked peaceful from this distance, but the radar screen told a different story. 5 large dots moved in orbit around Mars. Aquan warships. "Status report," Jack ordered. "Core temperature holding at 7,000 degrees, reported Anna from the engineering station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, making small adjustments. "I think I can push it to 8,000 when we need it." Tom looked up from the weapons console. "Heat channels are aligned, ready to direct core energy to the front shield on your command." "What about the Aquan ships?" Jack asked. 4 destroyer class vessels and 1 larger ship," replied the sensor officer. "The large one is staying back. The others are moving to intercept us." Jack nodded. This was it. Humanity's first real encounter with the Aquans. No human had ever seen an Aquan ship, up close, and lived to tell about it. "All hands, battle stations," he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his stomach. "Prepare for contact in 5 minutes." As the crew rushed to their positions, Admiral Marcus joined Jack on the bridge. The old man looked calm, but his hands gripped his cane tightly. "Remember," Marcus said quietly, "they'll expect us to run or try to dodge their attacks. They won't expect us to go straight at them." "Because it's suicide," Jack replied. Marcus smiled slightly. "Only if we're wrong about the heat shield." The ship's communicator suddenly crackled to life. A strange, gurgling voice came through, speaking in halting English. "Earth vessel. This is Commander Vrax of the Aquan expansion fleet. Surrender now, and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." Jack looked at Marcus, who nodded. They had agreed not to respond to any communication. Let the Aquans think they were facing a normal Earth ship. 30 seconds to contact, announced the pilot. First Aquan destroyer is charging weapons. On the main screen, they could see the enemy ship clearly now. It was sleek and blue with what looked like giant tanks of water visible along its sides. A circular weapon on its front began to glow. "They're preparing to fire their hydro cannon," said Tom, his voice tight with anger. He had been waiting for this moment since his family died. "All power to forward shield," ordered Jack. "Anna, give me everything you can from the core." "Core temperature rising to 8,000 degrees, Anna called out, her fingers flying over the controls. "Heat shield activating." The front of the Sunforge began to glow red, then orange, then almost white with heat. 5 seconds to impact, said the pilot. Jack gripped the back of the pilot's chair. "Hold course. Take us straight into their weapon fire." Some of the newer crew members looked at him, With wide eyes, but no one questioned the order. They had all volunteered knowing this might be a one-way mission. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The Aquan ship fired. A massive stream of pressurized water shot toward the Sun Forge, moving at incredible speed. On any other ship, that water would cut through the hull like a knife through paper. But as the water hit the glowing heat shield of the Sun Forge, something amazing happened. In an instant, the water turned to steam with an explosive force. A cloud of white vapor surrounded the front of the ship, temporarily blinding everyone. "Did it work?" Jack shouted over the rumbling of the ship. Anna checked her readings. "Shield holding. Water is vaporizing on contact." "The Aquan ship is confused," reported the sensor officer. "They're adjusting their weapons." Through the clearing steam, they could see the Aquan destroyer repositioning. It seemed to be preparing for another attack. "They're going to try again," said Tom. "But now we know it works." Jack turned to him. "Can we use this somehow? Turn their attack against them?" Tom thought for a moment, then his eyes widened. "The steam explosion, if we could direct it back at them." "Like a reflected punch," said Jack. He turned to Anna. "Can we channel the heat to create a directional steam burst when their water hits us?" Anna's fingers were already moving across her console. "Maybe, if I divert power from the rear shields to the front heat modulators." "Do it," ordered Jack. "Tom, be ready to use that steam burst as a weapon." The Aquan ship fired again, another powerful stream of water rushing toward them. "Brace for impact," Jack called out. This time, when the water hit the heat shield, Anna was ready. She channeled the heat in a specific pattern, creating a controlled explosion of steam that shot back toward the Aquan ship. The enemy vessel hadn't expected this. The superheated steam hit its hull, causing parts of it to crack and warp from the sudden temperature change. "It worked," shouted Tom. "Their hull is damaged." The bridge crew cheered, but Jack knew they weren't done yet. "Press the advantage. Move us closer." The Sun Forge surged forward, its heat shield glowing even brighter now. The damaged Aquan ship tried to retreat, but it was too late. The human vessel was upon it, the intense heat from its shield causing the water tanks on the Aquan ship to boil and expand. "Their tanks are rupturing," reported the sensor officer with amazement. "They're being destroyed by their own water." Jack watched as the Aquan destroyer began to break apart. No one had ever seen an Aquan ship destroyed before. It seemed almost unreal, but their victory was short-lived. Alarms began to sound throughout the bridge. "3 more destroyers approaching," called out the sensor officer. "They're surrounding us." Jack looked at the tactical display. The Sun Forge had defeated 1 ship, but 3 more were closing in, and the large command ship was moving forward now too. "Can we do the same thing again?" he asked Anna. She shook her head, looking worried. "The shield is overheating. We need time to cool it down, or we risk melting our own ship. And our weapon systems are still mostly untested," added Tom. "We got lucky with that steam reflection, but we need more than luck against 3 ships." Jack considered their options. They could retreat, but that would only delay the inevitable. The Aquans would still reach Earth. They could keep fighting, but with damaged systems they might not survive. Then Dr. Wilson's voice came over the comm from the engine room. "Captain, I have an idea. The water we vaporized from that first ship, we captured some of it in our engine tanks." "How does that help us?" Jack asked. "If we superheat it and release it all at once, we could create a massive steam cloud," Wilson explained. "It might blind their sensors long enough for us to escape or reposition." It was risky, but they had no better options. "Do it," Jack ordered. The ship shuddered as superheated steam burst from vents all around the hull, creating a massive white cloud that engulfed the Sun Forge and expanded outward toward the approaching Aquan ships. "Full power to engines," Jack commanded. "Get us out of here while they can't see us." The Sun Forge shot forward, pushing through the steam cloud and away from the confused Aquan vessels. As they cleared the cloud, Jack saw Mars in the distance and made a quick decision. "Set course for the far side of Mars. We'll use the planet for cover while we make repairs." As the ship raced towards safety, the crew finally allowed themselves to breathe. They had done what no one thought possible. They had faced the dreaded hydro weapons and survived. More than that, they had destroyed an Aquan ship. For the first time since the Aquans began their conquest of the galaxy, someone had fought back successfully. "Send a message to Earth," Jack told the communications officer. "Tell them the Sunforge works. Tell them we can fight the Aquans." As the message was sent, Jack looked around at his exhausted but triumphant crew. This was just the beginning of the battle, but they had proven something important today. The Aquans weren't invincible after all. News of the Sunforge's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For decades, species had lived in fear of the Aquans and their unstoppable hydro weapons. Now, for the first time, someone had fought back and won. The Sunforge rested in a makeshift dock on Phobos, one of Mars's small moons. Engineers worked around the clock to repair damage from the battle and improve systems that had been rushed during the initial construction. Inside the ship, Captain Jack met with his senior officers in the small conference room. A holographic map showed the positions of Earth forces and the Aquan fleet, which had pulled back to regroup after their unexpected defeat. "Earth Command is building more heat shields for our regular ships," Jack explained. "But it will take time. Until then, we're the only defense against the Aquans." "The good news is we've made some improvements," said Anna. She looked tired but excited. "The core can now reach 9,000 degrees consistently, and we've redesigned the heat channels based on what we learned in the battle." Tom nodded. "And I've been working on something new." He pressed a button and the hologram changed to show a new weapon design. "I call it a thermal lance. It's a focused beam of heat that can reach out and hit enemy ships from a distance." "You mean we don't have to wait for them to shoot water at us?" asked Jack. "Exactly," said Tom. "We can attack first now." Dr. Wilson entered the room carrying a small container filled with liquid. "And I've made another discovery," he said, placing the container on the table. "This is a sample I took from the destroyed Aquan ship." "Water?" asked Jack, looking at the blue-tinted liquid. "Not just any water," Wilson replied. "It's their biological fluid. Aquans don't just use water as a weapon. Their bodies are full of specialized water cells." He pointed to a screen showing microscopic images. "These cells are extremely sensitive to temperature changes. When heated rapidly, they rupture." The implications were clear. "You're saying their entire biology has a weakness to what we're doing?" Wilson nodded. "Their evolution in oceans made them masters of water manipulation, but they never developed resistance to extreme heat. They've never needed to, until now." The ship's communicator beeped. "Captain," called the communications officer over the speaker. "We're receiving a transmission from an unknown ship approaching Phobos." Jack frowned. "Aquan?" "No, sir. It's identifying itself as a Saurian vessel." The officers exchanged surprised looks. The Saurians were a reptilian species known for their tactical skills. They had been one of the first to fall to the Aquans years ago. "Put it through," ordered Jack. A new hologram appeared showing a tall, green-scaled being with yellow eyes. "I am Captain Gregg of the Saurian Resistance," the alien said in a raspy voice. "We've come to meet the humans who destroyed an Aquan ship." Jack stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jack Reed of Earth's Defense Fleet." Gregg's lizard-like face showed what might have been a smile. "News of your victory has reached every corner of the galaxy, Captain Reed. Many thought it was just a rumor. The Aquans have been undefeated for so long. What do you want, Captain Gregg?" "To offer an alliance," replied the Saurian. "My ship is small, but I have information about Aquan fleet movements and weaknesses. For years we've been gathering intelligence, waiting for someone who could actually fight them." Jack considered this. They needed all the help they could get. "Permission to dock granted, Captain Gregg. We'll meet in person." An hour later, Jack stood with Gregg on the observation deck, looking out at Mars. The Saurian was even taller up close, with scales that shimmered in the dim light. "The Aquans are scared," Gregg said. "That's new for them. Their flagship, the Abyssal Tide, has been called to lead the next attack." "Is that bad?" asked Jack. Gregg turned his yellow eyes to the human. "The Abyssal Tide has never been defeated. It carries enough water to flood entire continents, and its commander, High Admiral Zet, is the most experienced warrior in their fleet. Jack frowned. When will they attack? Soon, said Greg. They're gathering their forces now, but first, they want to understand how you defeated their ship. He handed Jack a small data device. These are the current positions of all Aquan vessels near your solar system. Use it well. Why are you helping us? Jack asked. Greg looked back at Mars. My homeworld was one of the first to fall to the Aquans. Our cities were flooded, our people enslaved. For years, we've fought a losing battle. But now... He turned to Jack, his eyes intense. Now there's hope, and hope is worth fighting for. The next day, alarms blared throughout the Sunforge. Jack rushed to the bridge to find his crew already at their stations. Multiple Aquan ships approaching, reported the sensor officer. 5 destroyers and something much bigger. The main screen showed a massive ship moving toward Mars. Unlike the smaller destroyers, this vessel was enormous, with giant tanks of water visible along its length. It seemed to pulse with blue energy. The abyssal tide, whispered Anna. They're transmitting a message, said the communications officer. The screen changed to show an Aquan commander. Unlike the others they had seen, this one wore elaborate decorations on its blue skin and had piercing black eyes. I am High Admiral Zet, the Aquan gurgled in English. Your primitive vessel claimed one of our ships through trickery. There will be no more victories for Earth. Surrender now, or we will demonstrate the true power of the hydro weapons. Jack stepped forward. This is Captain Jack Reed. We will not surrender. Zet's large eyes blinked slowly. Then you will drown, human, just like all who oppose us. The transmission ended. Jack turned to his crew. Battle stations. Tom, are the thermal lances ready? Ready, Captain, Tom replied, his fingers already moving over the weapon controls. Anna, how's the core? At full power, 9,000 degrees and stable. Jack nodded. Then let's show them what humans can do. He turned to the pilot. Take us out. Set course directly for the abyssal tide. The Sunforge moved out from behind Phobos, its engines glowing brightly. As they approached the Aquan fleet, Jack could see the smaller ships moving to surround them. They're changing tactics, observed Greg, who had joined them on the bridge. They won't all attack at once like before. Then, we'll pick them off one by one, said Jack. Tom, target the nearest destroyer with the thermal lance. Tom aimed the new weapon and fired. A beam of intense heat shot from the Sunforge, striking the Aquan vessel. Where it hit, the ship's hull began to glow and warp. Direct hit, Tom called. Out. But the Aquan ship wasn't destroyed. It moved away, its damaged section cooling as it retreated. They're adapting, said Greg. They've added some kind of cooling system to their hulls. Then we need to hit them harder, Jack decided. Anna, can we increase the lance temperature? Not without risking our own systems, she replied. But, she paused, thinking, what if we combine the lance with their water? If we can heat their tanks directly, the expansion would tear them apart from the inside, finished Wilson. Do it, ordered Jack. The battle grew more intense as the Sunforge engaged the Aquan destroyers. Using the thermal lances to target their water tanks, they managed to cripple 2 more enemy ships. But then the abyssal tide moved forward. Its massive front cannon began to glow. Energy readings off the chart, reported the sensor officer. They're charging their main hydro cannon. All power to the heat shield, Jack commanded. The ship shuddered as the abyssal tide fired. A massive torrent of water, larger than anything they had faced before, rushed toward the Sunforge. When it hit the shield, the water vaporized as expected, but the sheer volume overwhelmed the ship's systems. Warning alarms sounded as the temperature inside the ship began to rise dangerously. Shield overloading, Anna called out. We can't take another hit like that. The Sunforge retreated, steam billowing around it. The Aquan fleet followed, sensing victory. But Jack wasn't ready to give up. What if we use Dr. Wilson's discovery? Target their biological weakness? Wilson nodded excitedly. If we can create a heat wave that affects their crew directly. Can we do that? Jack asked Anna. She thought for a moment. Maybe. If we vent the core heat in a specific pattern, creating a thermal pulse, like a heat bomb, said Tom, understanding. How long to set it up? Asked Jack. 10 minutes, Anna replied. But we'll only get one shot. After that, the core will need to cool down. Jack looked at the approaching Aquan fleet. Then let's make it count. As Anna and her team worked frantically to modify the ship's systems, the Sunforge played a deadly game of cat and mouse with the Aquan vessels, dodging their attacks while staying just close enough to keep their attention. Ready, Anna finally announced. Thermal pulse prepared. Jack took a deep breath. This would be their biggest gamble yet. Take us in close to the abyssal tide. All crew, prepare for extreme heat conditions. The Sunforge charged toward the massive enemy flagship, dodging water attacks from the surrounding destroyers. Now, Jack ordered when they were in position. Anna activated the thermal pulse. The Sunforge's core flared brightly, and a wave of intense heat expanded outward in all directions. It wasn't visible to the naked eye, but sensors showed the temperature wave rushing toward the Aquan ships. When it hit, the effect was immediate. The Aquan vessels began to drift erratically, their movements uncoordinated. It's working, exclaimed Wilson. Their crews are being affected by the heat. The abyssal tide fired its weapons wildly, missing the Sunforge completely. Two of the destroyers collided, unable to maneuver properly. They're retreating, reported the sensor officer as the remaining Aquan ships began to pull away. Even the mighty abyssal tide was turning around, moving back from Mars toward deeper space. For the first time in known history, an Aquan fleet had retreated from battle. The bridge crew erupted in cheers. Jack allowed himself a small smile as he watched the enemy ships flee. It wasn't a complete victory. The Aquans would return, probably with new defenses against heat. But today, humanity had proven something important. The water dwellers had finally met their match. 2 weeks had passed since the Sunforge drove away the abyssal tide. Earth had used this time wisely. 5 more ships had been fitted with smaller versions of the heat technology, though none were as powerful as the original Sunforge. Captain, Jack stood in the command center on Earth, looking at the large screen that showed the positions of all known Aquan vessels. Their numbers had grown alarmingly. They're gathering their entire armada, said General Moore, his face grim. 5 hydro dreadnoughts, including the abyssal tide, plus at least 30 destroyers. Have any other species joined our side? Jack asked. Moore shook his head. Captain Greg Saurians are helping, but most are still too afraid of the Aquans. They're watching to see what happens here. Admiral Marcus, now using a hover chair due to his weakening health, moved forward. They think we just got lucky, that our victory was a fluke. Then we'll have to prove them wrong, said Jack firmly. The door opened and Anna, Tom, and Dr. Wilson entered. They had been working non-stop on improving the Sunforge for the coming battle. We have something to show you, Captain, said Anna, her eyes bright with excitement despite her exhaustion. Dr. Wilson placed a small device on the table. It projected a diagram of what looked like a new weapon system. We call it the thermal cascade, Wilson explained. It combines everything we've learned about fighting the Aquans. Tom pointed to different parts of the diagram. It uses the core, heat to create a wave of energy that expands outward, like the pulse we used before, but much stronger. It affects both their ships and their biology. Will it work against their entire fleet? Jack asked. In theory, yes, said Wilson. But there's a catch. We need to get close to the center of their formation, and... He hesitated. We can only fire at once. The energy required will likely damage the Sunforge itself. Jack looked at the diagram, then at his team. These people had accomplished the impossible already, building a ship that could fight the unbeatable Aquans. If they believed this plan could work, he trusted them. How soon can it be installed? He asked. It's already done, Anna replied. The Sunforge is ready whenever you are. Jack nodded. Then it's time to end this. Space around Earth filled with ships. The 6 human vessels, led by the Sunforge, formed a defensive line. Behind them, Earth waited, its people watching the skies, with fear and hope. On the bridge of the Sunforge, Jack addressed his crew. Today we face the full might of the Aquan Armada. They've conquered half the galaxy with their hydro weapons. They think water is the most powerful force in the universe. He looked around at each person. Let's show them they're wrong. The sensor officer suddenly called out, "Captain, multiple ships dropping out of light speed. The Aquan fleet is here." On the main screen, ship after ship appeared. The 5 massive hydro dreadnoughts dwarfed the destroyers around them. At the center was the abyssal tide, now showing dark scorch, marks where the Sunforge had damaged it in their last encounter. "They've positioned themselves in attack formation," reported Tom from the weapons station. "The dreadnoughts are at the points of a star pattern, with the abyssal tide at the center." Jack studied the formation. To reach the center where they needed to be to activate the thermal cascade, they would have to push through the entire fleet. "Communication coming in from the abyssal tide," said the comm officer. High Admiral Zet appeared on screen. The Aquans' blue face showed dark patches, signs of burns from their last battle. "Humans," Zet gurgled. "Your defiance ends today. Your heat tricks worked once, but we have adapted. Surrender your planet now, and some of your people may live as our servants." Jack stepped forward. "We will never surrender, Admiral. Water is not the strongest force in the universe. The will to be free is stronger." Zet's large eyes narrowed. "Then we will drown your world and your freedom with it." The transmission cut off. "All ships, battle positions," ordered Jack. "Earth defense vessels 2 and 3 take the left flank. 4 and 5 the right. Saurian vessels provide cover fire. The Sunforge will lead the charge directly at the center." As the ships moved into position, Anna spoke from the engineering station. "Core temperature at maximum capacity. Thermal cascade system ready on your command." "Remember," added Wilson, "we need to be at the center of their formation for maximum effect." The 2 fleets faced each other in the blackness of space. For a moment, everything was still. Then the Aquan ships began to move. "They're charging weapons," reported Tom. "All dreadnoughts are powering up their main hydro cannons." Jack took a deep breath. "All ships advance." The human fleet surged forward just as the Aquans fired. Massive streams of pressurized water shot toward them from multiple directions. The heat shields on the human ships activated, vaporizing the water attacks. Steam clouds bloomed across space like white flowers. The battle quickly became chaotic. The smaller human ships darted between the Aquan vessels, their heat weapons causing damage but not enough to stop the massive alien fleet. The Sunforge pushed forward, its powerful engines driving it toward the center where the abyssal tide waited. 2 destroyers moved to block its path. "Thermal lances, fire!" Jack ordered. Tom targeted the destroyer's water tanks. The heat beams struck true, causing explosive bursts of steam that damaged the enemy ships. The Sunforge pushed through the gap, still heading for the center. "We're taking heavy fire," called out the damage control officer. "Rear shields failing." The ship shuddered as water attacks hit it from multiple directions. Some vaporized against the heat shields, but others found weak points, causing damage throughout the vessel. "Engineering to bridge." Anna's voice came over the comm, sounding stressed. "The core containment is starting to crack. We can't take much more of this." Jack looked at the tactical display. They were still too far from the center to activate the thermal cascade effectively. "We need to get closer," he shouted over the noise of damage alarms. Suddenly, Greg's Saurian ship appeared alongside them, taking hits meant for the Sunforge. "Captain Reed," Greg's voice came through the comm. "We'll clear a path. My ship won't survive much longer anyway. Make it count." Before Jack could respond, the Saurian vessel surged forward, ramming into an Aquan destroyer that blocked their path. Both ships spun away, severely damaged. "Full power to engines," Jack ordered. "Head straight for the abyssal tide." The Sunforge raced forward through the opening created by Greg's sacrifice. All around them the battle raged. The human ships were fighting bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. 2 of Earth's vessels had already gone dark. Finally, the Sunforge reached the heart of the Aquan formation. The massive bulk of the abyssal tide loomed before them. "We're in position," Tom shouted. "Thermal cascade ready," Anna reported. "But the core is critically unstable. Once we activate it, we'll have minutes at most before it breaches." Jack nodded grimly. They all knew this might be a one-way mission. "Activate the cascade." Anna's fingers flew over the controls, initiating the sequence they had designed. The ship's core glowed brighter than ever before, pulsing with energy that flowed into the new system. "Thermal cascade charging," she reported. 80%, 90. "Ready, fire," ordered Jack. The Sun Forge released the built-up energy in a massive wave that expanded outward in all directions. Unlike their previous heat pulse, this one was visible, a rippling distortion that spread through space like a stone dropped in a pond. When it hit the Aquan ships, the effect was immediate and devastating. Water tanks ruptured, releasing their contents, which instantly vaporized in the intense heat. The expanding steam created secondary explosions throughout the fleet. On the biological level, the Aquans themselves were affected even more severely. The sudden, extreme temperature change caused their specialized water cells to burst, incapacitating entire crews simultaneously. The abyssal tide, closest to the pulse origin, suffered the worst damage. Its massive hull cracked in multiple places as its water weapon systems catastrophically failed. "It's working," shouted Tom, watching the sensor readings. But the victory came at a price. The Sunforge's core was now dangerously unstable, the heat threatening to melt the ship from the inside out. "Core breach in 2 minutes," Anna called over the blaring alarms. "We need to evacuate." "All hands to escape pods," Jack ordered. "Abandon ship. Repeat, abandon ship." As the crew rushed to the escape pods, Jack remained on the bridge, watching the Aquan fleet falling into disarray. Ship after ship went dark or began drifting helplessly. The mighty abyssal tide, pride of the Aquan Armada, was breaking apart. Anna appeared at his side. "Captain, we need to go. Now." Jack nodded and followed her to the last escape pod. As they pulled away from the Sunforge, they watched through the small window as the ship that had saved humanity glowed brighter and brighter. Then, in a final burst of light, the Sunforge's core breached. But instead of a destructive explosion, the ship released its remaining energy in one last thermal wave that washed over the crippled Aquan fleet. In the command center on Earth, General Moore watched as sensors showed the Aquan ships powering down or drifting away. The few that could still move were retreating, leaving their damaged vessels behind. "They're running," he said in disbelief. "They're actually running." 3 months later, Captain Jack stood on a platform before a cheering crowd. Behind him stood Anna, Tom, Dr. Wilson, and the surviving crew of the Sunforge. Even Greg was there, his scaled face showing what passed for a smile among Saurians. The President of Earth stepped forward to place medals on each of their chests, for bravery beyond the call of duty, and for saving not just Earth, but countless worlds from Aquan domination. As the ceremony ended, Jack looked up at the monument being unveiled, a statue of the Sunforge, the ship that had turned the tide of the war. News had come in from across the galaxy. With the Aquan fleet defeated, subjugated species were rising up, throwing off their oppressors. The water dwellers were retreating to their home system, their invasion halted. A new alliance was forming, with Earth playing a leading role. Human thermal technology was being shared with former Aquan subjects, creating a more balanced and free galaxy. The Sunforge itself was gone, sacrificed to win the war, but its legacy lived on. Throughout the stars, it had become known by a name that made Jack smile every time he heard it. The dangerous ship, the vessel that proved heat could overcome water, and that humans would never back down from a fight, no matter how impossible the odds. Captain Mark Thompson stood at the main viewport of the Earth Coalition vessel Horizon, staring into the vast emptiness of space. His weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as the ship cruised at the edge of our solar system. After 15 years of space exploration, Mark thought he had seen everything the cosmos had to offer. He was wrong. "Captain, you need to see this." The voice of Emma Davis, the ship's sensor specialist, crackled over the intercom. Her usually calm tone carried an edge that made Mark straighten his back. "On my way," he replied, making his way to the bridge with quick, practiced steps. When he arrived, the entire bridge crew sat frozen at their stations, eyes fixed on the main display. Mark followed their gaze and felt his breath catch in his throat. A massive ship hung against the backdrop of stars. It was unlike anything humans had ever built, sleek and silvery with strange geometric patterns covering its hull. It measured at least 5 miles from end to end, dwarfing the horizon like a whale next to a minnow. "How did it get so close without us noticing?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma shook her head. "It just appeared, sir. One moment there was nothing, the next—" She gestured helplessly at the screen. Jack Wilson, the communications officer, suddenly jumped in his seat. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's not using any Earth protocols, but somehow our systems are translating it." Mark swallowed hard. First contact. This was the moment every space explorer dreamed of but secretly feared. Put it through. The main screen flickered and an alien face appeared. The creature had smooth blue-gray skin, large eyes with vertical pupils and no visible nose. When it spoke, its thin mouth barely moved, but the voice that came through the speakers was clear and precise. "Greetings, vessel of Earth. We are the Viren Collective. We come in peace and observation." Mark stepped forward, shoulders squared. "This is Captain Mark Thompson of the Earth Coalition vessel Horizon. We welcome you to our solar system and extend friendship on behalf of humanity." The alien blinked slowly. "We have been monitoring your civilization from afar. The time has come for closer assessment. We request permission to send a small delegation to your vessel for preliminary contact." After a quick conference with Earth Command, who were both excited and cautious about the development, Mark granted permission. The bridge crew watched in amazement as a small shuttle detached from the massive alien ship and approached the horizon. Dr. Lisa Reed, the ship's chief exobiologist, met Mark at the docking bay. Her eyes shone with barely contained excitement. "Can you believe it, Captain? Actual aliens. My whole career has been leading to this moment." She clutched her tablet tightly, ready to record every detail. Mark placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "Remember protocol, Doctor. Friendly but cautious." The airlock cycled open, and 3 aliens stepped aboard. They wore form-fitting suits that covered their entire bodies with transparent helmets revealing their blue-gray faces. Each carried a small device that blinked with colorful lights. Mark stepped forward with a practiced smile. "Welcome aboard the Horizon." The tallest alien inclined its head. "I am Delegate Vex of the Viren Collective. These are my associates, Science Officer Marn and Cultural Observer Prell." Its voice came through a translator device at its throat. "We appreciate your hospitality. We've prepared a conference room for our meeting," Mark said, gesturing down the corridor. "If you'll follow me." As they walked, Lisa studied the aliens with professional interest. Despite their humanoid shape, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, the differences were fascinating. They moved with a fluid grace, almost gliding rather than walking. In the conference room, Mark introduced key members of his crew: Lisa, Security Chief Robert Brown, and his second-in-command, Commander Anna Patel. "We've prepared information about Earth and humanity for your review," Anna said, sliding a data tablet across the table. Vex regarded it without touching it. "We prefer to use our own devices for data collection." He placed one of their blinking devices on the table. It projected a holographic display that rotated slowly in the air. "This will passively scan your vessel and record our conversation." Robert tensed slightly, his security training kicking in. "What exactly are you scanning for?" "Standard environmental and biological data," Science Officer Marn replied. Her voice was higher pitched than Vex's, almost musical. It is protocol for all first contacts. The meeting proceeded with exchanges of basic information, star charts, historical timelines, and cultural overviews. The Varans explained they were part of a vast galactic community that monitored developing spacefaring civilizations. Your species has advanced remarkably quickly, Vex noted. From primitive flight to interplanetary travel in less than 2 centuries. We're curious by nature, Mark replied with a slight smile. Throughout the meeting, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She noticed how the aliens kept their distance from all the humans, how they flinched almost imperceptibly when anyone moved too quickly, and most curiously, they remained in their environmental suits despite scans showing the ship's atmosphere should be perfectly safe for their biology, based on the data they'd shared. When there was a brief pause in the conversation, Lisa leaned forward. If I may ask, why do you continue to wear your environmental protection? Our preliminary analysis suggests our atmosphere wouldn't harm you. The 3 Varans exchanged quick glances, a movement so subtle Lisa almost missed it. Standard protocol for first contact situations, Vex answered smoothly. We maintain isolation until full biological compatibility is confirmed. Lisa nodded, but her scientific instincts told her there was more to it. She made a note to review the atmospheric data again. The meeting continued for another hour before Vex suddenly stood. We have collected sufficient preliminary data. We must return to our vessel to process this information. Mark frowned at the abrupt end to the meeting. Of course, but we hope to continue our discussions. There's so much we can learn from each other. Indeed, Vex replied, though his tone had cooled noticeably. We will contact you again once our analysis is complete. As they escorted the aliens back to the airlock, Lisa pulled Mark aside. Captain, something's not right. Their reaction when I mentioned their suits, I noticed, Mark muttered. And did you see how their scanner started blinking faster when they passed the oxygen recycling station? Before Lisa could respond, they reached the airlock where the aliens were already boarding their shuttle. Vex turned back briefly. Until we meet again, Captain Thompson. There was something in his voice. Was it concern? Fear? The shuttle departed, returning to the massive ship looming in the distance. On the bridge, the crew watched as the alien vessel suddenly began to move, accelerating away from Earth at incredible speed. They're leaving? Anna asked, confused. Just like that? Mark's eyes narrowed as he watched the retreating ship. No, Commander, I don't think they're leaving. He pointed to the ship's energy readings on the display. They're powering up something big and they're transmitting massive data packets toward the center of the galaxy. What does it mean, Captain? Emma asked. Mark's expression darkened. I don't know, but something we did or said spooked them, and I have a feeling we're going to find out what it was sooner than we'd like. Back on the Varan vessel, Science Officer Marn burst into the command center, her environmental suit already removed as she clutched a datapad with trembling hands. Hi, Commander. You must see this analysis immediately. Her voice shook with panic. The humans, their entire planet, it's beyond anything we could have imagined. The High Commander took the pad, his eyes widening as he read. This can't be possible. He looked up, genuine fear in his eyes for the first time in his long career. Sound the evacuation alarm. We must leave this system immediately and warn the collective. The alarm echoed through the massive ship as it accelerated away from Earth, leaving behind a confused humanity, completely unaware that they had just been classified as the most dangerous species in the known galaxy. The Viran vessel tore through space, pushing its engines beyond safe limits. Inside the command center, High Commander Lorne reviewed the scan data for the 5th time, hoping he had somehow misunderstood. The results remained the same. This cannot be real, he muttered, his blue-gray skin paling to an ashy white. An entire civilization breathing oxygen? Science Officer Marn nodded, her hands still trembling. The scans are clear, Commander. Their atmosphere is approximately 21% oxygen. They don't just tolerate it, they require it to live. For the Virans, whose chlorine-based biology made oxygen highly toxic and corrosive, this revelation was horrifying. In their experience, oxygen was used primarily as an industrial oxidizer or weapon component, never as a life support element. Look. At these readings, Marn continued, pointing to the scan of a human. The oxygen doesn't just surround them. It flows through their blood vessels, saturates their tissues. They are literally filled with it. Medical Officer Jal, who had joined the emergency meeting, shook his head in disbelief. Such biology should be impossible, unless... Unless what? Commander Lorne demanded. Unless they were engineered as living weapons, Jal finished quietly. A species designed to survive in conditions that would kill any normal life form. A heavy silence fell over the command center. The implications were terrifying. If humans could not only survive but thrive while carrying a highly reactive gas in their bodies, what other deadly adaptations might they possess? We must warn them, collective immediately, Lorne decided. Prepare a full report with all scan data. Mark this system as extremely hazardous. As the Viran ship accelerated toward the jump point that would allow them to send a faster-than-light message to their homeworld, the humans they left behind remained completely unaware of the terrible misunderstanding that had just occurred. 3. Days after the Viran's abrupt departure, the crew of the Horizon remained puzzled. Captain Mark Thompson sat in his office reviewing the footage of the alien visit for what felt like the 100th time. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called. Dr. Lisa Reed walked in, carrying her tablet. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she'd been sleeping as little as he had. "Any breakthroughs?" Mark asked, gesturing for her to sit. Lisa shook her head. "Not exactly, but I've been analyzing the readings we got from their scanner device. It was collecting atmospheric data, but with a strange focus on oxygen levels." "Oxygen?" Mark frowned. "What's special about oxygen?" "I'm not sure," Lisa admitted. "But I noticed their scanner activity spiked when they passed our life support systems and again when they were near any crew members. It's almost as if..." She paused, trying to find the right words. "As if our oxygen was of particular interest to them." Before Mark could respond, his communication panel beeped. "Captain, this is Wilson in communications. We've detected another massive data burst from the alien vessel. They're transmitting toward the same coordinates as before." "On my way," Mark responded, standing quickly. He gave Lisa a concerned look. "Whatever spooked them, they're still very interested in us." On the bridge, the crew had gathered around the main sensor display. Jack Wilson pointed to a series of energy spikes on his screen. "The aliens are at the edge of our sensor range, but they're generating enormous power. These readings suggest they've activated some kind of faster-than-light communication array." Jake Wells, the military intelligence analyst who had been added to the crew after the alien encounter, studied the data with narrowed eyes. "They're sending a lot of information about us to someone. The question is, what are they saying? And to whom?" Mark added grimly. "Captain," Emma called from her station, "Earth Command is requesting an update. They want to know if we've re-established contact with the aliens." Mark sighed. "Tell them no contact, but we're monitoring unusual communication activity and request permission to remain at our current position rather than returning to Earth. I want to see if the aliens come back." As days turned into weeks with no sign of the Virans, Earth grew increasingly anxious. The brief alien encounter had sparked a mix of excitement and fear across the planet. Some saw it as the dawn of a new era of interstellar cooperation. Others warned of potential threats from beyond the stars. The Horizon maintained its vigil at the edge of the solar system, joined now by 3 additional Earth vessels. Together they formed a small but watchful outpost, humanity's first line of both welcome and defense. 6 months after first contact, Science Officer Marn stood nervously before the Viran High Council. Behind her, High Commander Lorne waited silently, his career and reputation hanging on her presentation. "The evidence is conclusive," Marn explained, showing holographic images of human physiology. "These humans not only survive in an oxygen-rich environment, but have evolved to require it. Their blood cells actively transport oxygen throughout their bodies. What would be deadly poison to us is their life essence. The 7 council members exchanged troubled glances. Could this be natural? Evolution, asked one elderly counselor. Marn hesitated. It's theoretically possible, but highly improbable. In all our centuries of space exploration, we've never encountered a species with such extreme biochemistry. What are you suggesting, science officer? The head counselor's voice was sharp. There are 2 possibilities, Marn replied carefully. Either they evolved naturally in conditions we would consider lethal, or, she took a deep breath, or they were engineered as biological weapons by some ancient civilization. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. Their technology is advancing rapidly, Commander Lorne added. They've moved from primitive atmospheric flight to space exploration in less than 2 centuries. Such acceleration is unprecedented. The head counselor looked grim. And if they were to discover worlds with chlorine atmospheres like ours? They would likely view our worlds as targets for colonization, Lorne stated. Our atmosphere would eliminate their need for oxygen production facilities. They could simply release their poison into our air and wait for us to die. After hours of debate, the council reached its decision. A fleet would be dispatched to the human solar system, not for peaceful contact, but to establish a quarantine perimeter. The oxygen-breathing humans would be contained until the collective could determine how to neutralize the threat they posed. What the Virans couldn't understand was that humans were just as natural as they were, simply evolved under completely different conditions. What they saw as a weapon was simply a different path of evolution. Back on the horizon, the sensor alert blared without warning. Emma's fingers flew across her console as she tried to process the readings. Captain, she called, her voice tight with urgency. Multiple objects just appeared at the edge of our detection range. Big ones. Mark rushed to the bridge, Lisa close behind him. The main screen showed at least 12 massive shapes where empty space had been moments before. Configuration? Mark demanded. Similar to the vessel we encountered 6 months ago, but these appear to be different. Emma looked up, her face pale. Based on their energy signatures and structure, they appear to be warships, sir. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Open a channel, Mark ordered. All frequencies. Jack tried repeatedly, but received no response. They're ignoring us, Captain. The alien ships moved with precise coordination, beginning to spread out in a formation that would effectively block the route between Earth and the rest of the galaxy. They're not here for friendly contact, Jake said quietly. They're setting up a blockade. Mark watched as more ships continued to appear, their numbers growing by the minute. Send an emergency message to Earth Command. All ships on full alert. Status. He turned to Lisa, who looked as shocked as everyone else. Doctor, whatever you discovered about their interest in oxygen, I think we need to figure it out fast, because I'm starting to think our visitors see something in us that terrifies them. Little did they know that what the Virans feared most was the very air humans breathed, the dangerous life support that was about to trigger an interstellar war based on nothing more than a tragic misunderstanding. The situation at the edge of Earth's solar system grew tenser with each passing hour. 23 Viran warships now formed a blockade, their weapons charged, but not yet firing. On Earth, panic spread as news of the alien fleet reached the public. Admiral James Blackwell of Earth Defense Command stared at the holographic display showing the alien positions. Around him, military leaders from around the world argued about how to respond. We should strike first, insisted General Harris of the North American Alliance. Show them we won't be intimidated. And start an interstellar war we cannot win, countered the Chinese representative, General Wu. Their technology is clearly superior to ours. Admiral Blackwell raised his hand for silence. Before we make any decisions, let's hear from the people who actually met these aliens. He nodded to the screen where Captain Mark Thompson and Dr. Lisa Reed waited from aboard the Horizon. Captain Thompson, in your opinion, why have the Virans returned with a battle fleet? Mark looked tired but composed. Sir, we still don't know for certain. They've ignored all attempts at communication, but Dr. Reed has developed a theory. Lisa stepped forward. After analyzing data from our first contact, I believe the Virans may have fundamentally misunderstood something about human biology. Their scanners showed unusual interest in our oxygen levels. Oxygen? Blackwell frowned. What's significant about oxygen? I wasn't sure until recently, Lisa explained. But we managed to recover fragments of the environmental suit one of the Virans was wearing. The material analysis was fascinating. It's designed specifically to prevent any contact with oxygen molecules. To them, oxygen appears to be highly toxic, General Harris scoffed. So they're afraid of the air we breathe? That's ridiculous. Not to them, Lisa insisted. If their biology evolved using chlorine instead of oxygen, which is entirely possible, then our atmosphere would be as deadly to them as chlorine gas would be to us. A thoughtful silence fell over the command center. You're suggesting this blockade is based on a misunderstanding? Admiral Blackwell asked. I believe they see us as dangerous because we survive in what they consider a toxic environment, Lisa nodded. Possibly even as a threat to their worlds. Mark added, we need to find a way to communicate this mutual misunderstanding before things escalate further. Before Admiral Blackwell could respond, alarms blared across the command center. Sir, one of our patrol ships near Neptune has opened fire on a Viran scout vessel, a communications officer reported. Mark's face paled. Who authorized weapons? Release? No one, sir, the officer replied. Captain Rogers of the Defiant reports the alien ship was scanning their life support systems and he interpreted it as an attack preparation. Admiral Blackwell closed his eyes briefly. And so it begins. High Commander Lorne received the report with grim satisfaction. The humans have fired the first shot just as expected. Their aggressive nature confirms our worst fears. The scout ship was merely conducting atmospheric analysis, Science Officer Marn pointed out. They might have misinterpreted. It doesn't matter, Lorne cut her off. The Council has authorized full containment measures. The humans cannot be allowed to spread through the galaxy, carrying their poisonous biology with them. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their patrol vessels first. Minimal damage. I want prisoners for study. Across the vacuum of space, blue energy beams lanced out from 3 Viran warships, striking the human vessels with surgical precision. The Defiant lost engine power immediately. 2 other patrol ships managed to return fire before being disabled. The first battle between humans and aliens had begun, a battle founded entirely on a biological misunderstanding. On Earth, military forces worldwide went on high alert. Fighter squadrons launched, nuclear weapons were readied, and civilians crowded into emergency shelters. The planet prepared for possible invasion, unaware that the Virans had no interest in their world, only in containing what they saw as a biological threat. Aboard the Horizon, now functioning as a forward command post, Mark received emergency authorization to attempt communication with the Viran fleet. We're broadcasting on all frequencies and in the format they used during first contact, Jack Wilson reported. But they're not responding. Keep trying, Mark ordered. And patch me through to Dr. Reed in the lab. Lisa appeared on his screen, surrounded by equipment and looking exhausted. Captain, I've made progress. The recovered Viran suit fragments contain compounds that react violently with oxygen. Their entire biology must be based on entirely different chemical processes than ours. Can you use this to prove we're not a threat to them? If I could directly show them how our different biologies evolved naturally, maybe. Lisa ran a hand through her tangled hair. But I need more information about their physiology, preferably a living specimen. Mark frowned. That won't be easy given the current. An explosion rocked the ship, cutting off his words. The lights flickered as emergency systems engaged. Status. Report, Mark shouted as he steadied himself. Direct hit to our starboard section, Anna Patel reported from the bridge. Shields holding at 62%, 3 Viran vessels approaching. Mark rushed to the bridge where view screens showed the battle unfolding across the solar system. Earth ships were being systematically disabled, though the aliens seemed to be avoiding destroying them entirely. They're capturing our vessels, Jake Wells noted, studying the tactical display. Taking prisoners. Or specimens, Lisa said as she joined them on the bridge. If they think we're biological weapons, they'll want to study us. Another blast hit the horizon, stronger than the first. Sparks flew from a nearby console. Shields at 37%, Anna reported grimly. We can't take another hit like that. Mark made a quick decision. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. We need to deliver Dr. Reed's findings to command before we're captured. As the horizon turned and accelerated toward Earth, the Viren ships followed in pursuit. The game of cat and mouse through the outer solar system gave the humans precious time. Time that Lisa used to finalize her research and prepare a comprehensive report on the biological misunderstanding at the heart of the conflict. But even as the horizon raced homeward, the Viren fleet commander implemented the next phase of their containment plan. From 5 of their largest vessels, smaller objects were deployed, speeding toward Earth with single-minded purpose. Captain, we're detecting multiple launches from the alien fleet, Emma reported, her voice tight with concern. Trajectory analysis shows they're heading for major population centers on Earth. Nuclear defense systems? Mark asked. Jake shook his head. The objects are too small and fast for current Earth defenses to track effectively. Lisa looked up from her data analysis, her face pale. If they truly believe our oxygen atmosphere makes us dangerous, those could be weapons designed to target our air. Explain, Mark demanded. Antimatter bombs, Lisa said quietly. Designed to ignite our atmosphere. They don't want to invade Earth. They want to neutralize what they see as a biological threat. The bridge fell silent as the horrifying possibility sank in. A simple misunderstanding about different evolutionary paths was about to escalate into genocide. Mark's jaw tightened as he made the hardest decision of his career. Change of plans. We're not running away. He turned to Anna. Set an intercept course for the nearest Viren command ship. Sir? Anna looked confused. If we can't talk to them from a distance, we'll force a face-to-face meeting. Mark's eyes were steel as he looked at his crew. Dr. Reed needs a live Viren to prove her theory, and Earth needs us to stop those weapons. It's time for a direct approach. As the horizon changed course and accelerated toward the heart of the alien fleet, its crew prepared for what might be humanity's last desperate attempt to prevent extinction at the hands of aliens who feared the very air that gave humans life. The horizon raced toward the Viren command ship, engines straining beyond safe limits. On the bridge, Captain Mark Thompson watched the distance closing between his vessel and the massive alien warship. They've detected our approach, Anna reported. 3 interceptors breaking formation to engage us. Mark nodded grimly. Evasive pattern Delta. We need to reach their command vessel. He turned to Commander Alex Rivera, who had joined the mission specifically for this desperate gambit. Is your team ready? Alex, a compact man with determined eyes and a reputation as Earth's best tactical officer, gave a crisp nod. 6 volunteers, all armed with non-lethal weapons and wearing the modified environmental suits Dr. Reed designed. Remember, we need live specimens, Mark emphasized. No killing unless absolutely necessary. On the tactical display, the 3 Viren interceptors closed rapidly. Blue energy beams lanced out, narrowly missing the horizon as Anna executed a series of sharp maneuvers. Return. Fire, Mark ordered. Target their weapon systems only. The horizon's lasers struck the lead interceptor, causing it to veer off course. The other 2 continued their pursuit, firing continuously. Shields at 28%, Jack reported. 1 more direct hit and we're done. Route emergency power to the engines, Mark commanded. We need more speed. The horizon surged forward, closing the gap to the Viren command ship. The massive vessel loomed ahead, easily 20 times the size of the human ship. They're powering up their main weapons array, Emma warned. We have 30 seconds before they can fire. Mark pressed the ship-wide communicator. All hands brace for impact. Boarding team to launch bay. In the ship's laboratory, Lisa sealed her specialized environmental suit and grabbed her equipment case. The suit was designed to protect her from possible chlorine exposure while allowing the Virens to see her human form clearly. Inside the case were the tools she hoped would save humanity, evidence of Earth's natural evolution and the misunderstanding at the heart of the conflict. Dr. Reed, we need you in the launch bay now. Alex's voice came through her communicator. Lisa hurried through the corridors, passing crew members securing equipment and preparing for possible hull breaches. When she reached the launch bay, Alex and his team were already aboard the boarding shuttle, a small craft designed for short-range transport between ships. Once we breach their hull, we'll have minutes at most before their security forces respond. Alex briefed the team as Lisa strapped in. Our primary objective is to capture a VRAN officer alive and secure a communication terminal. The ship shuddered violently as a VRAN weapon found its mark. Hull breach on Deck 3, Anna's voice announced over the intercom. Boarding team, launch, now! The shuttle bay doors opened to the vacuum of space and Alex fired the thrusters. The small craft shot out from the horizon just as another energy beam struck the larger ship, sending it spinning. The horizon is disabled, Alex reported, grimly as they watched their ship go dark. We're on our own now. He guided the shuttle toward the VRAN command ship, taking advantage of the chaos of battle to approach undetected. Using scanning data collected during the engagement, Alex identified a potential entry point, a secondary docking port used. For maintenance, prepare for hard dock, he warned as he aligned the shuttle. Breach charges ready. The shuttle clamped onto the VRAN ship's hull with a metallic thud. Seconds later, shaped charges blew a hole through the alien vessel's outer layer. Warning alarms immediately blared inside the VRAN ship. Move, Alex ordered, leading the team through the breach and into the alien corridor. The atmosphere inside was different, denser, and with a greenish tinge. Lisa's instruments immediately began analyzing the composition. High chlorine content, she confirmed. Just as I suspected. 2 startled VRAN crew members appeared at the end of the corridor, their blue-gray skin paling at the sight of the humans. They reached for weapons, but Alex fired first, hitting them with stun projectiles. The VRANs collapsed to the deck. Secure them, Alex ordered. 2 team members rushed forward to bind the unconscious aliens. Lisa knelt beside one of the fallen VRANs, scanning it with her instruments. Their biology is fascinating. Chlorine is indeed their equivalent of our oxygen. They actually breathe it. Can you use that to prove we're not a threat? Alex asked, keeping watch down the corridor. I need access to their medical database. Or a lab, Lisa replied. And a conscious VRAN to communicate with. The team moved deeper into the ship, encountering surprisingly little resistance. Most of the crew seemed to be avoiding them. They're afraid of us, one team member observed. They're literally running away. They think we're toxic, Lisa explained. Our oxygen-rich bodies probably terrify them. After several tense minutes of navigating alien corridors, the team found what appeared to be a research center. Inside, a lone VRAN was frantically gathering data crystals. Alex moved swiftly, cutting off the alien's escape route. Don't move, Melarsh, he said, though he knew the VRAN likely couldn't understand him without a translator. The alien froze, its vertical pupils dilating with fear. Unlike the others they'd encountered, this one wore markings that suggested higher rank or specialization. Lisa stepped forward, her hands raised to show she meant no harm. She pointed to herself and said slowly, Human, friend, not weapon. The VRAN stared at her, then reached slowly for a device on a nearby console. When Alex tensed, the alien made a gesture that seemed calming. I think it wants to communicate, Lisa said. The VRAN activated the device, which projected a field of light between them. When it spoke, its words were translated into rough English. You are not killing everyone? Why have oxygen carriers boarded our vessel? Lisa felt a surge of hope. To talk, to explain. We are not weapons. We evolved naturally. The VRAN scientist, for that seemed to be its role, tilted its head skeptically. Impossible. Oxygen is deadly poison. To you, Lisa agreed, but not to us. Just as chlorine is poison to us, but life to you. She opened her case and projected images of Earth's evolutionary timeline, showing how oxygen-based life had developed over billions of years. See? Natural evolution. Different paths, not engineered weapons. The VRAN studied the data with obvious shock. This contradicts our assumption. But why attack our scout ships? Misunderstanding, Alex explained. We thought you were scanning to attack. You thought we were dangerous because of our biology. The alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship. The Viran looked up with obvious distress. "What is it?" Lisa asked urgently. "Atmospheric conversion weapons," the Viran replied. "Launched toward your world, designed to neutralize oxygen threat." Lisa's heart raced. "You have to stop them. Billions will die. We're not a threat, just different." The Viran hesitated. Clearly, "I am Kel, senior biological researcher. I cannot stop the weapons, only the High Commander can." "Then take us to the High Commander," Alex demanded. Kel's vertical pupils contracted. "The High Commander will not listen. Your presence here confirms his belief that humans are aggressive and dangerous." "Then help us prove we're not," Lisa pleaded. "The evidence is clear. Two different evolutionary paths, both natural, both valid." Kel studied Lisa's data again, scientific curiosity clearly battling with fear and prejudice. Finally, the alien nodded. "I will help you reach the command center, but I cannot guarantee the High Commander will listen." As they followed Kel through the ship's corridors, Lisa couldn't help but reflect on the tragic irony of their situation. Two intelligent species, each evolved to breathe what was poison to the other, now on the brink of war because of that simple biological difference. On the ship's main display, the antimatter weapons continued their deadly course toward Earth, carrying destruction born of fear and misunderstanding. The countdown to global catastrophe ticked relentlessly downward, while humanity's fate rested on the slim hope of convincing an alien commander that different didn't mean dangerous. "How much time do we have?" Alex asked as they hurried through the alien ship. "The weapons will reach your atmosphere in 47 minutes, Kel replied. "After that, nothing can stop the reaction." Mark's voice came through suddenly on their communicators, surprising everyone. "Thompson to boarding team. The Horizon is back online. What's your status?" "We've made contact and have a potential ally," Alex reported. "But we need to reach the command center to stop the weapons." "Understood," Mark replied. "We're detecting multiple Viran ships breaking formation and moving to intercept the weapons. Looks like not everyone agrees with this attack." Lisa felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps rationality and scientific understanding still had a chance to prevent catastrophe, if only they could reach the right people in time. Time was running out as Lisa, Alex, and their unlikely ally Kel hurried through the winding corridors of the Viran command ship. Twice they had to hide from security patrols, precious minutes ticking away while the antimatter weapons sped toward Earth. 35 minutes remaining, Kel informed them, checking a device on his wrist. "The command center is 2 levels up." They reached an elevator-like platform that Kel activated with a wave of his hand. As they ascended, Lisa reviewed her presentation one final time. Everything depended on her ability to convince the Viran High Commander that humans were not biological weapons but simply a different form of life. The platform stopped, and they stepped into a wide corridor lined with armed guards. The guards immediately raised their weapons when they spotted the humans. "Wait!" Kel moved in front of Lisa and Alex, addressing the guards in the musical language of the Virans. "These humans must speak with High Commander Lorne. It concerns the atmospheric weapons." The guards hesitated, their fear of the oxygen-breathing humans visible in their body language. Finally, one spoke into a communication device. After a tense moment, the guard nodded. "The High Commander will see you," Kel translated. "But your weapons must stay here." Alex reluctantly surrendered his stun gun, and the team was escorted through massive doors into the command center. A vast circular room filled with holographic displays and busy Viran officers. At the center stood a tall Viran with elaborate markings on his blue-gray skin. High Commander Lorne turned as they entered, his vertical pupils narrowing to slits at the sight of humans on his bridge. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his words translated by the device Kel carried. "Why have you brought these dangerous creatures into my command center?" Kel stepped forward. "High Commander, I believe we have made a grave mistake. These humans are not the weapons we thought them to be." "Explain quickly," Lorne ordered, glancing at a countdown displayed prominently on the main screen. "The purification weapons will reach their target in 30 minutes. Lisa took a deep breath and activated her own presentation device. "High Commander, My name is Dr. Lisa Reed. I am a scientist like Kel. We have discovered the source of our misunderstanding. She projected images of Earth's evolutionary timeline, showing the development of oxygen-rich atmospheres and the life forms that evolved to use it. Humans breathe oxygen because our planet developed that way naturally over billions of years, just as your species evolved to breathe chlorine. She displayed comparative images of human and Viran biology side by side. Different, but both natural. Neither of us is a weapon. We are simply products of our environments. Lorne studied the data, his expression unreadable. This could be deception. How do we know you were not engineered by some ancient enemy to invade chlorine worlds? Because we had no idea chlorine-breathing life existed until we met you, Alex interjected. We were as surprised by your biology as you were by ours. Lisa added, if we wanted to harm you, why would we board your vessel with peaceful intent? Why would we be trying to stop this war? Before Lorne could answer, a Viran officer approached urgently. High Commander, 3 of our ships have moved to intercept the weapons without authorization. They are led by Science Overseer Marn. Lorne's face darkened. Open communication. A holographic screen appeared, showing a female Viran whose markings identified her as a high-ranking science officer. Marn, explain your actions, Lorne demanded. High Commander, I cannot allow this genocide, Marn replied firmly. Our preliminary analysis supports what these humans claim. Their oxygen use appears to be the result of divergent evolution, not artificial engineering. You would betray your own people based on a theory? Lorne challenged. I would prevent us from becoming murderers based on a misunderstanding, Marn countered. As scientists, we must follow evidence, not fear. Lisa sensed an opportunity and stepped forward. Commander Lorne, I propose a test. If I remove my helmet in this chlorine atmosphere, it would poison me, just as your people would be poisoned by oxygen. This proves neither of us designed our biology as a weapon. We're simply different. No, Kel moved to stop her. The exposure would kill you. Not immediately, Lisa said, and it would prove our point. Lorne raised his hand. That will not be necessary, human scientist. He studied the countdown timer, now showing 25 minutes. Even if what you say is true, the weapons cannot be recalled once launched. Then let us help you intercept them, Alex urged. Our ships could work together. Lorne hesitated, generations of caution warring with the scientific evidence before him. The risk is too great. If you are wrong about your own nature, then test us, Lisa interrupted. To everyone's shock, she reached up and unsealed her helmet, lifting it just enough to take a small breath of the chlorine-rich atmosphere before Alex forced it back down. She immediately began coughing violently, her eyes watering as the chlorine burned her lungs, but she stayed standing, facing Lorne through her tears. See? She gasped between coughs. Poison, to me, just as oxygen is to you. Neither weapon, just different. Lorne stared at her with what might have been respect. You risked your life to make your point, to save billions. Lisa managed, still struggling to breathe properly. A tense silence filled the command center, broken only by Lisa's labored breathing. Finally, Lorne turned to his officers. Order all ships to assist in intercepting the weapons. Priority 1, the command center burst into activity as orders were relayed. On the main display, they watched as Viran and human ships coordinated their efforts, targeting the deadly weapons speeding toward Earth. Will they make it in time? Alex asked, supporting Lisa, who was still recovering from her chlorine exposure. Some of the weapons will likely reach your atmosphere, Lorne admitted, but perhaps not enough to cause global devastation. For the next 20 minutes, they watched the desperate space battle unfold. One by one, the antimatter weapons were destroyed, some by Viran ships, others by Earth's defenders who had been joined by the recovered Horizon. When the countdown reached 0, 3 weapons remained. They plunged into Earth's atmosphere, detonating over remote ocean areas. The explosions were visible from space, bright flashes of light followed by massive clouds as the antimatter reacted with oxygen. But the chain reaction the Virans had feared did not occur. The concentration was insufficient, Kell observed. Your planet is safe. The tension in the command center eased slightly, though uncertainty remained in the air. What happens now? Alex asked. Lorne turned to face them. Now we must re-examine everything we thought we knew about biology in this galaxy. If two such different forms of life can evolve naturally, how many others might exist? 3 months later, Captain Mark Thompson stood beside Dr. Lisa Reed in a specially constructed meeting chamber on the moon. The room was divided by a transparent barrier, one side filled with Earth's oxygen atmosphere, the other with the chlorine, mix the Virans needed to breathe. On the human side, Earth's leaders waited nervously. On the Viran side, High Commander Lorne and Science Overseer Marn led their delegation. The Galactic Biological Coexistence Treaty, Lisa murmured, looking at the document displayed on screens on both sides of the barrier. I never thought I'd see this day. Mark smiled at her. You made it possible. Your willingness to risk your life convinced them we weren't the monsters they feared. We both made mistakes, Lisa admitted. They assumed our biology made us weapons. We assumed their actions made them aggressors. Both assumptions nearly led to disaster. As the human and Viran leaders began signing the treaty, a document acknowledging the natural evolution of both species and establishing protocols for peaceful contact between biologically incompatible civilizations, Lisa couldn't help but reflect on how close they had come to destruction. The war that began with an evacuation alarm, triggered by the simple act of scanning what one species considered dangerous life support, had ended with a profound new understanding. In the vast diversity of the universe, what gave life to one being might be poison to another. But difference didn't have to mean danger. It could also mean opportunity, for growth, for discovery, and for a richer understanding of life itself in all its wondrous varieties. As the ceremony concluded, human and Viran scientists gathered on their respective sides of the barrier, already sharing ideas for joint research projects and exchanging data about their worlds. The fear that had nearly destroyed them was being transformed into curiosity, and the misunderstanding that had nearly led to genocide was giving way to mutual respect. You know, Mark said quietly, watching the scientists excitedly comparing notes. Sometimes I think we're at our best when we're faced with our worst. Lisa nodded, watching as Kell used a translator device to explain something to a group of fascinated human biologists. The Virans have a saying, understanding begins when fear ends. I think we're finally ready to understand each other. In the airless void of the moon, two species who breathed poison to each other had found something far more important than biological compatibility. They had found common ground.